Hello everybody! This is Angel Arts once again. As of this recording, it actually has been a month or so, I want to say, since I beat Mass Effect 3. I tend to try to record my LPs ahead of time and upload them onto YouTube as I find the time to do so. So it's been a while since I beat Mass Effect 3, and I just wanted to take the time to talk about my honest opinions of the Mass Effect 3 ending 1 month later. The reactions that you saw me having in my last video, my last video of my Gay Let's Play Mass Effect 3 series, was my genuine reactions to seeing the ending for the very first time at that moment. And I think many of you are probably curious as to what I think about the ending once I actually had some time to think about it. Because I know that there's so much controversy over the ending. At the moment of this recording, BioWare has announced that they're going to release a DLC, Mass Effect 3, the extended cut, I think is what they're calling it, and they're trying to address all of the concerns that many of the fans, at least many of the vocal fans, seem to be having about their issues with the Mass Effect 3 ending. And so I kind of wanted to talk about my personal opinions. And you know, before I go any further, I'm hoping this goes without saying, but I'm just going to say it anyway. This is completely my opinion, my personal opinion. You are all definitely welcome to disagree with me completely. You know, that's perfectly fine. You know, your mileage can definitely vary. I'm just telling you what I honestly think after giving it a lot of thought. Because to be perfectly honest, while I was watching the ending for the first time, I was in the moment, and I was, you know, too busy trying to enjoy and make, you know, reasonable sense of what was going on in front of me, and I wasn't, you know, really over-analyzing anything. You know, I was just trying to enjoy myself, for the sake of the LP especially. So I wanted to do a little bit of research of some of the things that many people have had problems or issues with the Mass Effect 3 ending, so I could see what they had to say and think about what my feelings were for them. So in order to help me out with this, I actually am going to be referencing a video from Angry Joe. He has a video, which I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video, 10 Reasons We Hate Mass Effect 3's Ending, by Angry Joe. And it's probably not an exhaustive list of everything that people hate about the Mass Effect 3 ending, but I think it covers the largest ones for majority of the people. And this is in no way meant to be a response to Angry Joe. I'm not, you know, trying to tell Angry Joe, you know, what are you talking about? I totally disagree with everything you said, or even some of what you said. It's not meant to be a response at all. I'm just using the list that he made up as a basis for what I'm going to discuss for you, because I thought it was a pretty darn good list. So if you have some time, I definitely recommend that you take a look at it. It's about 20 minutes long, but I think it's very thorough. So here are my thoughts for the top 10 reasons why a lot of people seem to hate Mass Effect 3. So starting, I'm going to pretty much go in the order as they were represented in Angry Joe's video. The Normandy escape. So Angry Joe mentioned that many people thought it was very ridiculous that the Normandy was supposedly escaping, was supposedly running away from combat, from the war, when the mass relay started blowing up. You know, how dare they do that? You know, Shepard said, this is a point of no return, everybody's going in, they're giving it their all to fight this war. So why the heck is Joker hightailing it out of the way and abandoning everyone. I actually don't think that's a plot hole. I actually think that what Joker did kind of makes sense, and hear me out. This is the reason why I think it makes sense and it's not a plot hole. Yes, I agree that everyone going into this war has to understand that sacrifices will be made. Many of them are not going to be coming back, and you can't be a coward and hightail it. That being said, though, that doesn't mean that if you see some sort of immediate threat to you and the squad or party that you are responsible for, that doesn't mean you should just stand there and take it if you can, avoid it, to come back and rejoin the battle as needed. If you're in the middle of a fight and a grenade lands in front of you, you're not just gonna stand there in front of the grenade and keep firing your weapon. If you can simply jump out of the way, let the grenade explode, and then continue, participating in the battle. So when Joker sees, I'm assuming the reason why Joker was flying away is because he saw that the Citadel was blowing up. I mean, something was happening to the Citadel. It was bursting forth these multicolored explosions, whatever color you happen to have. I know a lot of people are saying it doesn't matter. But anyway, he sees this explosion and he has no idea if it's going to hurt the Normandy or everyone in the Normandy. He has no idea. I mean, we know after the fact that it probably doesn't, or at least does minimal damage to everyone except for the Reapers, if you chose to destroy them. I mean, essentially, the explosions were only meant to affect the Reapers and the Mass Effect relays, which we're going to get into later. But, Joker has no idea. He doesn't know that. So his gut reaction, if he sees that happening, is he is going to try to protect the Normandy and everyone on it. You might call that cowardly, but I don't think so, because what does he gain by staying? How is he going to help other people? If the whole thing is exploding all around them, how is him staying going to help all the other fleets? I mean, the only thing he has control over is the Normandy itself and the people on it. So of course, Joker is going to try to hightail it out of there, I'm assuming with the intention of coming back once the danger is over, and, thinking that the fleets would be doing the same thing. If those fleets see this explosion, they probably too will try to get away from it as far as they can and come back in order to rejoin the fight. That's what I was thinking was happening when I first saw the ending, and I think that makes perfect sense to me now. So that's why I don't think it was a plot hole. It made perfect sense. Now, I did Joker in fact use a Mass Effect relay to escape? I mean, that very much could be the case, depending on how large the explosion was, because it looked like it was pretty darn huge. Joker probably thought, well, there's a relay right there, and this explosion looks like it's going to be really huge. I'm not going to be able to move fast enough to get away with it, so I'm going to take the relay and then hopefully come back. And I think that's, in the split second, that was his gut reaction, his reflex reaction. The second plot hole that Angry Joe was talking about was the beaming up of Shepard's squad mates back up into the Normandy. Angry Joe thought that it was kind of ridiculous that you saw the same squad mates that were with Shepard on Earth suddenly appearing to come out from the Normandy. And again, I don't think that's a plot hole at all. And in fact, I more do not think it's a plot hole than the first point. And again, here's the reason why I thought it made perfect sense. When you go up into the Citadel, when you walk into that beam of light and get beamed into the Citadel, you black out. And I don't think it was conclusive how long Shepard was out. I mean, he or she could have been unconscious for a few seconds. He could have been unconscious for minutes, maybe 15 minutes, I would say. I don't know. It's hard to tell. And, even if he or she was out for like a few seconds, before he magically appeared in the Citadel. He spent a lot of time in that Citadel. I mean, he had to drag himself, limping very slowly, to get to the terminal where Anderson was, and then had that very long, aggravating conversation with the elusive man. And then after that, you know, he brought the arms open, and then he had that very touching talk with Anderson, and then, you know, he gets sent up in that next beam of light, and he talks to the Catalyst Kid, which we're gonna get to later. Don't worry, we'll get to the Catalyst Kid later. But anyway, my point is, a good chunk of time had passed since Shepard went up into the beam. And based on all of the bodies that were around him as he was struggling to get to the beam at that very last moment, I think it's safe to say that his companions were probably, you know, in a very poor shape, and probably, you know, needed to be rescued by the Normandy, or picked up by the Normandy. You know, because I think that's what Shepard would want. Shepard has gone into the Citadel, his squad mates did their job, they assisted Shepard to get up to that point and get Hammer up through as far as they could up to the beam. There was no reason for any of his companions to stay. Even his love interest, if the love interest was there within his squad, all the more reason for Joker to come and rescue the love interest, because that's what Shepard would want. There's no reason why the love interest should stay, because you know, the war, yeah, they can stay and fight and shoot, but if they're injured, that's probably not a good idea. And you know, it just there was plenty of time for Joker to come and pick them up somehow. Maybe not exactly where Harbinger was at that beam of light at that moment, but I think there was enough time for Joker to pick them up, including the LI, just to keep them safe, because I think that's part of Joker's job, is like he did with escaping with the Normandy, is to keep everyone on the squad safe, because Shepard is now in the Citadel. It's all Shepard at that point. There's nothing, you know, anyone down on the surface, you know, can definitely help taking down Reaper, the husks and everything, but it's Shepard that's ending the war at that moment, you know. So yeah, that's why I don't think that the squad mates just magically teleported up into the Normandy. The next one was the destruction of the mass relays. Now this is the one that I do agree I had a bit of issue with, because I wasn't thinking of it at the time, but you know, with the mass relays gone, you've got everyone in the, you know, all the fleets from all those races are on Earth, many of whom are not going to be able to eat the food that's on Earth. And supposedly they're kind of stuck there if the mass relays get blown up. And, you know, a lot of people were saying, you know, I spent all that time getting the Krogan, you know, curing them of the genophage, and I spent all that time giving the Quarians back their homeworld, only for them to not be able to return. The only thing that I can think of that would help explain that is, and I could be wrong because my Mass Effect lore is not perfect, but I feel like even though the Mass Effect relays allow you to travel faster than light, that doesn't mean that the technology doesn't exist for the existing ships in the galaxy, even the existing ships in the fleet. That doesn't mean that they can't travel at the speed of light or close to the speed of light. I want to believe that BioWare intended for those fleets to still be able to reach their homeworlds even without the use of the Mass Effect relays. It'll take a lot longer, you know, instead of, you know, by real life terms, it would be the difference between, you know, flying somewhere by plane versus driving, you know, taking a road trip to somewhere. But I believe that it's very well possible that the ships can still get, you know, Quarians can still get to Rannoch, the Krogan can still get back to Tachanka. It'll be a struggle, it'll be hard, it'll be like, you know, as difficult as the pilgrims, you know, traveling to America for the first time, but it's possible, and I'm guessing that is going to be addressed in the expanded DLC. Just a guess. And if that's the case, I'm willing to buy that. I'm willing to buy that. I can't believe that BioWare would just put them in a state where they were just stranded there without an explanation, like I just said. Which again brings me to the whole point number 4, which was the stranded victory fleet. So I've already covered that. Number 5 was war assets, and I think this is more than just the war assets. I think one of the major problems that people had about the Mass Effect 3 ending was they didn't feel that your decisions mattered at the end. All of the decisions that you made through Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3 did not seem to change the ending enough. Here's my response to that. I personally, to be perfectly honest, did not expect my choices through the 3 games to necessarily affect the ending that much. More so, I expected my decisions to affect the events that led up to the ending. For example, the state of the genophage cure, and the state of the Quarian versus Geth conflict. The choices that you made in the previous games definitely affected the outcome of those, you know, of those particular scenes. And those were the ones that I expected my decisions to affect. Not really so much the ending. Why did I not expect my decisions to affect the ending? Because BioWare has said that they were planning on continuing with the Mass Effect series. Not necessarily Shepard's story, because I believe Mass Effect 3 is supposed to end Shepard's story. But they were planning on making a Mass Effect 4, if that's what they're going to be calling the game. The Mass Effect universe is still going to continue. And I believe it'll be a lot easier, obviously, it'll be a lot easier for them to continue on with the story if certain elements at the end of the game were the same, regardless of the choices that you made. Yes, Shepard made a lot of choices that I believe impacted his or her experience through her journey to the end of the game. But certain things like the Mass Effect relays, you know, being blown up, Joker and the Normandy crash landing onto that planet, Shepard dying maybe at the end, those are all things that I admit are similar no matter what happens in the 3 choices that you end up choosing. But to me that makes sense, because I believe in order for BioWare to make a story in the next chapter, certain things need to be the same, certain things need to be similar. It just makes it a lot easier that way. And if you think about it, there were actually the 3 choices that you made at the end with the catalyst did lead to, I think, very different outcomes. The cutscenes may be very similar, you know, the cutscenes, I admit, were very, very similar to each other, but that does not mean that the occurrences outside of the cutscenes were similar as well. Because in one instance, Destroy, the Reapers are destroyed, all synthetic life is destroyed, the Geth are gone, EDI's gone, you know, that's a major difference from the outcomes of the other 2 choices. With the Control, the Reapers are not destroyed, but they are now controlled by an embodiment of Shepard, a spirit of Shepard, I guess. So Shepard is still kind of around, dead. The body's dead, but I believe like the mind or the sentience of Shepard is still around to be able to control these Reapers. And the Geth, you know, and synthetic life are still alive. That's very, very different. And then the last one, Synthesis. In Synthesis, actually, I was surprised about Synthesis because it just seemed like it was totally different. It put the universe in a totally different state than the other 2 than the other two choices. So much that I wonder how they're going to be capable of continuing on with the series, knowing that, you know, in two of the choices you have the synthetics and the organics not fused together, but in one you do have the organics and the synthetics fused together. I don't know how they're cleverly going to be able to continue on with that, you know, taking consideration those two things, assuming that they are, which I hope that they do. But, you know, only time will tell. So, to me, I think that those three choices did lead to three very different outcomes. You may not see it in the cutscenes, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. So, that's, again, just me. You definitely can disagree with me, but, you know, that's how I'm feeling. And related to that, the war assets. I admit, it would be really cool and really awesome to have seen my individual war assets that I've collected throughout the game in action, maybe even in their own cutscene. BioWare actually did this fairly well with Dragon Age Origins without giving any spoilers. You actually got to see all your hard work pay off in the form of seeing the people that you recruited fighting alongside with you at the last battle. But the scale of Mass Effect 3 was a lot larger than in Dragon Age Origins, because in Dragon Age Origins you only had like a handful of different armies, I guess, and races that were helping you. Whereas in Mass Effect 3 you had tons and tons and tons. And while I'm sure it would be possible for them to have been able to take all of your war assets in consideration and displaying them on a cutscene, I'm sure it would have been very, very, very difficult. But I am not faulting BioWare for that, because I feel like it would have been a great touch, but in no way do I feel the ending was ruined because they didn't show the war assets. I don't know, maybe I'm just easier to please than some, but it would have been cool, but I didn't think it was absolutely integral in doing it. Anyway, moving on. Number 6 was about needing more closure. I agree. It would have been nice to have seen an epilogue of some sort that explained what happened after, you know, in the aftermath. And I think that's what the DLC is addressing. I honestly was okay with keeping things open-ended. It kind of allowed you to decide in your mind your own headcanon, your own story of what happens to everyone who survives after the, after the events with the Crucible. And I think part of the reason is there's just, the ending created so many questions, like, what the heck is all the fleet's going to do now that the Mass Effect relays are gone? I think because there were questions like that, it made it very difficult for people to really come up with their own ideas of what the aftermath would be. So I agree that, if the ending was written in such a way that it didn't pose all those questions, that the ending might have been accepted better, even if it was open-ended, because at least people would have something reasonable that they could fill in the blanks with. But with the state that the ending is now, I admit it's very difficult to fill in those blanks at the moment. I think that's why people are very frustrated with the ending and why they want so much closure. So hopefully the DLC will address all of that. Number 7, the twist ending versus the happy ending. Okay, I love happy endings. Okay, I definitely would prefer a happy ending where Shepard lives. You have the ability to... I would have loved the ability to allow Shepard to live somehow, no matter what decision you make, no matter which of the 3 choices you make. It can be difficult to reach that conclusion with Shepard still living, but it would have been nice if it was possible for all instead of just the one decision, the red decision. But I was not overly upset that, you know, Shepard could die. If anything, I was actually, for my particular playthrough, I was more sad for Steve Cortez, than I was for Shepard himself. Because think about it, Steve had just recently lost his husband. He lost his love, his husband to this war, and now, you know, he's found a new love. He's trying to move on, and he's trying to start this new relationship, and he's taking the plunge, he's taking the risk in becoming Shepard's lover, knowing that Shepard could die, you know, while trying to protect the galaxy from the Reapers. So, you know, seeing Shepard, you know, dissolve as he jumped into that big beam of light for the synthesis ending, my heart just broke for Steve Cortez, because he's going, poor thing, has to go through this a second time. And it, you know, that's the real reason why I was saddened by the ending. It wasn't because Shepard died. It wasn't because I was sad for Shepard. It was because I was sad for Steve. And I admit that if you have a love interest who's still alive, Kaden, you know, Tali, Garrus, you know, Liara, Ashley, all those people, I'd feel horrible for those people. But yeah. So, you know, that's the only reason why I wanted a more happy ending, was more for those characters' sake, not for my Shepard's sake.